For more than 3,000 years, one civilization stood taller, brighter, and more advanced than almost any other on Earth. A place where time moved differently, where the desert itself seemed alive with secrets. This was ancient Egypt, a land built on golden sands and blessed by a river that gave life to everything it touched. The mighty Nile, flowing from the heart of Africa to the Mediterranean, was Egypt's lifeline. Without it, there would be no civilization, no pyramids, no history. Along its banks rose great cities, Memphis, Thebes, and Giza, filled with towering temples, sacred tombs, and the scent of burning incense. Here, people believed the gods walked among them. The sky belonged to Ra, the sun god, the afterlife to Osiris, and the living world? That was ruled by the pharaohs, kings who were more than human, seen as divine, chosen by the gods themselves. Every monument, every carving, every grain of sand tells a story of faith, of power, of a quest to live forever. This is the story of ancient Egypt, a story of mystery, glory, and eternal life. Every great story begins somewhere. And Egypt's began with a river. The Nile wasn't just water, it was life itself. Each year, its calm blue waters would rise and flood the land, spreading rich black soil across the desert. When the waters receded, farmers returned to the fields to plant grain, fruits, and papyrus. To the Egyptians, this miracle wasn't science, it was divine. They believed the gods controlled the river's rhythm, blessing them with abundance. Over time, tiny farming villages grew along its banks, connected by trade, faith, and survival. People learned to build homes from mud brick, to write symbols that captured their world, and to organize under leaders who could bring order to chaos. Around 3100 BC, one ruler rose above them all, King Narmer. He united the lands of Upper and Lower Egypt, bringing two crowns under one name. This was the birth of the world as first great nation, a kingdom so advanced it would stand for over 3,000 years. With unity came power, and with power came ambition. The Egyptians began to dream of eternity, to build not just for life, but for the afterlife. With Egypt united, a new era began, one of power, innovation, and faith. This was the Old Kingdom, often called the Age of the Pyramids. The pharaohs believed they were not just kings, but gods walking among mortals. Their duty wasn't only to rule, but to prepare for eternity. To honor the gods and to secure their place in the afterlife, they built monuments unlike anything the world had ever seen. The greatest of them all stood on the sands of Giza, the Great Pyramid built for Pharaoh Khufu. Imagine it, more than 2 million limestone blocks, each weighing several tons, stacked with mathematical perfection. No cranes, no machines, just human hands, brilliant engineering, and unshakable belief. The pyramid's sides align almost perfectly with the 4 cardinal directions, and its base is level to within fractions of an inch. Even today, no one fully understands how they achieved such precision over 4,500 years ago. To the Egyptians, these weren't just tombs, they were stairways to the heavens, a symbol of divine power rising from the earth toward the gods. And as the sun set over Giza, its golden rays turned the pyramids into mirrors of light, a reminder that even in death, the pharaoh's spirit would shine forever. Behind the towering pyramids and golden tombs, there was everyday life. The story of Egypt wasn't only written by kings and gods, it was lived by farmers, craftsmen, and families along the Nile. When the river flooded, farmers planted barley and wheat. When it receded, they harvested under the hot desert sun, singing songs to thank the gods for a good season. Markets buzzed with color and sound, traders selling jewelry, pottery, perfumes, and spices. Children ran between the stalls, laughing, while musicians played flutes and drums in the background. Egyptian homes were simple but lively. Walls painted with bright colors, floors lined with woven mats. Families gathered at sunset to share bread, fish, and stories about the gods. Education was highly valued. Scribes learned to write hieroglyphs, a language of symbols that recorded everything from taxes to love poems. Egyptians loved beauty. Both men and women wore makeup made from minerals, not just for fashion, but for protection from the sun. They wore fine linen clothes and adorned themselves with amulets they believed brought luck and health. At the heart of their daily life was a powerful idea called Ma'at, the balance between order and chaos, truth and justice. To live in harmony with Ma'at was to live in peace with yourself, your people, and your gods. In ancient Egypt, life and faith were one. Every sunrise, every breath, every harvest, all were seen as gifts from the gods. The Egyptians believed their world was filled with powerful beings who ruled the sky, the earth, and even the afterlife. Ra, the sun god, sailed across the heavens each day in his golden boat, bringing light to the world. At night, he journeyed through the underworld to fight darkness and rise again at dawn. Osiris, the lord of the afterlife, represented rebirth and eternal life, the promise that death was not the end. His wife, Isis, was the goddess of magic and healing, a symbol of devotion and protection. And then there was Horus, the falcon-headed god of kingship, who watched over every pharaoh, guiding them with divine power. Every temple, every offering, every prayer was meant to keep harmony between humans and the gods. Priests performed daily rituals, lighting incense and offering bread, wine, and flowers to sacred statues believed to hold divine spirits. To the Egyptians, magic, or Heka, wasn't superstition. It was the invisible force that connected heaven and earth. They believed words, symbols, and rituals could shape reality itself. This deep spiritual connection gave them strength and a sense of purpose that lasted thousands of years. To the ancient Egyptians, death was never the end. It was a doorway, a passage to another world. They believed that when a person died, their spirit began a long journey through the underworld, guided by the god Anubis, protector of the dead. But reaching paradise wasn't easy. The soul had to face trials, answer questions, and prove its purity before the gods. The most famous of these trials was the weighing of the heart. In this ceremony, the heart of the deceased was placed on a scale and weighed against a single feather, the feather of Ma'at, the goddess of truth and justice. If your heart was lighter than the feather, you were pure. You earned eternal life in the field of reeds, a heavenly version of Egypt, where the Nile always flowed and crops never failed. But if your heart was heavy with sin, it was devoured by Ammit, a terrifying creature with the head of a crocodile, the body of a lion, and the hips of a hippopotamus. Your soul would be lost forever. To prepare for this journey, Egyptians perfected the art of mummification, a sacred process meant to preserve the body, the home of the soul. Skilled embalmers carefully removed organs, treated the body with oils and salts, and wrapped it in linen bandages, layer after layer. Amulets were placed between the wrappings to protect the spirit. The finished mummy was placed inside beautifully painted coffins, surrounded by treasures, food, and scrolls of spells from the Book of the Dead, everything needed for life after death. To them, immortality wasn't a dream. It was a promise written in stone, sealed in tombs, and whispered by the sands of eternity. Throughout Egypt's long history, some rulers became legends, names that still echo across time. The first was Khufu, the king who built the Great Pyramid of Giza. His monument still stands after 4,500 years, defying time itself. To his people, it wasn't just a tomb. It was proof of divine power, a stairway to the stars. Then came Hatshepsut, one of Egypt's most extraordinary rulers. A woman who dared to take the title of pharaoh in a man's world. She ruled wisely, expanding trade, building temples and bringing peace to her land. Her temple at Deir el-Bahari still rises gracefully from the cliffs, a symbol of beauty and strength. Next was Akhenaten, the revolutionary. He broke tradition and worshipped only one god, the sun disk Aten. His vision was bold, but it divided Egypt, and after his death, his name was nearly erased from history. Then came his young son, Tutankhamun, the boy king. He ruled only for a short time, but centuries later, his tomb was discovered almost untouched, a treasure chest frozen in time. When archaeologist Howard Carter opened it in 1922, the world was stunned. The golden mask of Tutankhamun became the face of ancient Egypt itself. And finally, there was Ramses the Great, the warrior king, a ruler who reigned for over 60 years, building temples, cities, and colossal statues of himself. His power and pride were unmatched. Even today, his name, carved deep into stone, still commands respect. These pharaohs weren't just rulers. They were symbols of Egypt's spirit, dreamers who tried to reach eternity, and in their own way, succeeded. But even the greatest empires eventually fade. Time, like the desert wind, wears down even the strongest stone. After more than 3,000 years of glory, Egypt's power began to weaken. Drought struck, the Nile's floods became unpredictable, and rival kingdoms rose beyond its borders. Civil wars divided the land, and the once divine pharaohs lost their grip on power. First came the Libyans, then the Assyrians, and later the Persians, each leaving their mark on the land of the Nile. Yet Egypt's story didn't end there. In 332 BC, a new conqueror arrived, Alexander the Great. The Greeks admired Egypt's wisdom, its art, and its gods. After Alexander's death, his general Ptolemy became pharaoh, blending Greek and Egyptian culture into something new, a fusion that gave birth to the last great dynasty. From this dynasty came one of history's most famous names, Cleopatra VII. Intelligent, ambitious, and fluent in many languages, she ruled not just with beauty, but with strategy. Cleopatra tried to preserve Egypt's independence, allying herself with Rome, first with Julius Caesar, then with Mark Antony. But in the end, Egypt could not escape Rome's shadow. When Cleopatra's reign ended, so did the age of the pharaohs. Egypt became part of the Roman Empire, and the ancient gods slowly faded into myth. Yet, Egypt's influence never truly disappeared. Its art inspired Greece and Rome. Its mathematics and medicine guided scholars for centuries. Its stories of gods, kings, and eternal life still capture the world's imagination. The empire may have fallen, but its spirit became immortal. For centuries, the sands of Egypt kept their secrets. Temples lay buried, tombs sealed, and entire cities forgotten beneath the desert. But time could not hide them forever. In the 19th and 20th centuries, explorers and archaeologists began to uncover what had been lost for thousands of years. Then, in 1922, one discovery changed everything. In the Valley of the Kings, archaeologist Howard Carter found the tomb of a young pharaoh, Tutankhamun. When Carter held his lantern up to the darkness, he saw gold shimmering from every corner. The world stood in awe. Inside were treasures, statues, and the breathtaking golden mask that became an icon of ancient Egypt itself. Since then, new discoveries have continued to rewrite history. Hidden tombs, secret tunnels, even ancient workshops where mummies were made. Every discovery reminds us that Egypt's story ascend to finished. It is still being told, piece by piece, from beneath the sand. Today, Egypt stands as a bridge between the ancient and the modern world. Its pyramids rise proudly against the skyline. Its temples still whisper prayers from a forgotten age, and its spirit continues to inspire art, science, and imagination. More than 5,000 years later, the civilization of the Nile still teaches us one powerful truth. Greatness is not about how long you live, but how deeply your legacy endures. The pyramids may be silent, but their message is eternal. This was the story of ancient Egypt, a story of mystery, of power, and of eternal life. If you enjoyed this journey through time, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us again for more untold stories of ancient history.